How's it going, everyone? So there wasn't an episode last week. The reason is I'm in the midst of moving, so it's pretty hectic at the moment. I'm doing my best to try to get these episodes out for you guys. So I already have a few of them recorded, I just need to get them edited. So I'm gonna have this one up today as you're listening, hopefully. And I believe I'm going to still try to do an episode a week. I do apologize if they're late a week after, but try to keep up on my social medias, Twitter and Instagram. I'll let you know what's happening there. Besides that, I'm glad everyone's still listening. I'm glad that everyone's still sharing the show. I really appreciate that. You know, it's you guys really talking about it, sharing it with your friends and family, and I'm truly grateful. So I'm gonna try to get this thing finished up for you guys and a few others, and get ready to pack up and go. So for now, let's get on with the show. And welcome to another episode of the Convoluted Podcast. It's your host, Jesus, aka Tyrant Dominus, and today we have another guest from the Reddit realm. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm James, CEO of Exelcoin, and I run a blockchain R&D group in New York City called Shadow Foundry.
Okay, so I got a chance to kind of look over your projects and some of the things. It looks really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more of your company and what you're trying to provide? Because it looks like you're trying to do something really great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was working in Myanmar, which is a country in between India and China, for the last several years, and mostly around investing in the country, investing in projects. And during my time there, I realized the most important thing to be focused on in terms of creating the most value in the region was education. So I think we started out by studying different things that could shorten the kind of learning journey for a student, because the particular problem you have in Myanmar is you're next door to Thailand, but you're also next door to India and China. And what happens is, if you build schools in Myanmar, which are expensive, and you put teachers in those schools, a student has to go through this 10-year, 12-year journey just to be not as competitive at the end of it as someone, say, graduating from a school in Thailand or a school in China. So we knew we couldn't win within a generation by building schools. Couldn't do that. So we started looking at technology and different psychological factors to see if we could shorten the kind of learning journey for a student, to reduce classroom hours and kind of optimize how quickly and how well they could learn. And then that took us down the building and using of things like machine learning and delivering courses through like video-based courses through an application where you can verify that a student has taken a particular course using the forward-facing camera of a smartphone, for instance, and then recording academic performance on something called blockchain, which is a way of recording data that's relatively tamper-proof, so that we wouldn't have the responsibility, like I wouldn't have the responsibility of having to answer to everyone that, say a kid from Bangladesh took a bunch of courses from us. I wouldn't have to verify personally that kid was in the classroom taking these courses, didn't cheat, didn't hire someone else to take the examinations for them. Instead, we built a suite of technologies which are all open up, being audited. And then, so if say one of our students from Bangladesh comes and applies for a job from you, you wouldn't have to call me to verify anything. You could just look at our code and look at the various courses that they took. So everything's open auditing, which is really a very long-winded way of saying we're trying to solve for free basic education for everyone. And then that's really what the purpose of everything I do is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was luckily I was able to read up a little bit on your not only your statement but some videos that kind of explaining your company. And there, I would recommend anyone out there who wants to learn a little bit more about what he's doing. There's a couple videos that you provide, kind of explain what you're trying to do, and they're very informative. And it's like for me, from like I have a technical background, so seeing what you're trying to do is very fascinating for me. So, so what before the company started, what got you started into the idea beforehand into this?
Oh, well, I support an orphanage in Myanmar, about 86 kids, and the thing is, you think about it in terms of a math problem. So, however much money you have, running an orphanage that size takes about $100,000 a year. So, like putting $1 million into it doesn't go very far, only because the kids have needs. Kids grow. They all have to go to school. They have medical expenses. So it would be, in terms of like a real world scenario, it would be very difficult and never ending to raise money continually to give them subpar food, subpar schooling. It's just the things you get in Myanmar aren't the same as the things you get in, say, Germany or the United States. So I really had to study alternatives to that, to kind of philosophically, I believe in equity. I don't think people are equal, and so I don't want you to get me wrong on that. For instance, I don't think you or anyone needs to fight for my right to have an abortion. So I don't believe in equality in that kind of way. But I think everyone should start from the same place. It doesn't matter who you are, what color your skin, or what gender you are. We should all start from the same starting line, and that's not true for a lot of people. So thinking about a starting line for everyone, I think everyone should have access to high quality education, and it doesn't matter whether good teachers live in your country or in your community or in your region. We should be able to deliver high quality education to anyone in the world. Given that technology is so advanced, and and so much educational content is readily available. So, and then that's kind of what started me thinking about what can we do to deliver high quality education to a kid. And then it's not just about delivering videos to a kid. It can't possibly be about that, because the kid has to pay attention to the video, has to absorb that information, has to master that kind of subject area, and then has to be able to use it in their real life. So that kind of brought me to it's a natural progression where you have to think about how do we make this course content that already exists interesting to a child, and then how do you kind of not let them get lost, because asking a kid to watch, say, 4 hours of videos a day, that's a huge ask, especially if the videos are not entertaining. So how do we work around that? And just figuring out thousands of tiny problems like that, and then testing solutions. And that a lot of our work focuses around working in the Kutupalong Rohingya refugee camp. And the reason why we work there is because they don't have access to schools. So it's a good place to run experiments on people with no access to education and no access to internet, see if our things work in a real world environment, and then see if they actually produce the results we want them to produce. So a lot of my work just revolves around that, focused on delivering education to very, very poor people.
Okay, cool. That is interesting, and I like the idea you're trying to. What's the best way to put it? You have a way to overall test these options that you have. That is a struggle for a lot of people, is having a baseline to see if the what product you have is being able to produce the what you want from it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of what you're trying to do. It is true that education is truly a key for any person out there, and it is also true that as far as we are concerned at the moment, not everyone is equal. That we are we do all start at different levels, and it's been shown time and time again that no matter or wherever you are in whatever family you go, there's a lot that really determines your chances to sadly succeed in the world, and it's one of the few things that is disappointing to really think about. But it is a truth that is out there, and I like what you're trying to do is to provide an alternative to have a baseline for people and have the option to have to succeed. Basically, like you're giving the person an option to succeed, and it's up to the person if they want to succeed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So honestly, the work you're trying to do is amazing, and I look forward to continuing to watch what you're trying to do. So as for me, like an outsider, what would you say would be a way for me and any listener out there to kind of public to help support, or probably a good way to support you and the company you are a part of?
Well, we're trying to build a high school in New York City, actually, at the moment. So I'm based in New York, and I will be based here for the next couple of years, trying to build this thing out. And I think we're working on trying to get a permission from New York State to issue New York State Regents high school diplomas. And the thinking is we hire teachers here, let them teach courses, we record those courses, then we could deliver those virtually. And then at the end of that, will New York State allow us to grant a New York State high school diploma to a kid living abroad? And that's kind of the problem we're trying to solve, which is an interesting problem to solve, because once you solve that, then presumably someone from the middle of nowhere can educate themselves through our courses and then have a direct pathway to, say, a state university education in New York, which then leads to a number of job opportunities.
That is interesting. I didn't think about that. Wow,
Yeah.
that being able to provide the quote unquote certificates that says you have passed all these courses to.
For a lot of people, education is about optics, and it's monolithic in that, say you are educated at Princeton or Yale, people naturally assume that you're of high intelligence and then of high integrity, moral character, all of that. So a lot of assumptions go into optics and making it look right, and it's a hurdle we can't get around. Originally I thought, if one human person masters all the discrete skills that are taught in high school, meaning adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions, you master all those discrete skills, presumably they should be equivalent to another human who has mastered all those same skills. But that is not true, especially in the minds of employers. So if you learn all of these skills and you're from Iran or Siberia, you don't get the same credit as if you're from San Francisco or if you're from Dallas, Texas. And we needed a way of balancing that. And we think we're asking New York State if they'll allow us to create that kind of balance. But most of it's just political.
I hear you. That damn. I myself suffer from that stigma myself. It's hard for me to acquire a job. I have a bachelor's in cybersecurity and 2 associates, but because of the schooling and the situation behind that, it's kind of hard for employers to look at that. And I can see, I fully understand that. It's for me, it's really frustrating when I'm trying to escape my current work to seek an actual position in the job that I've studied for, and that the schooling that I got, because I have all the skills, yet it's the school that I've attended that is holding me back. And seeing that you are struggling from that as well, I can see that it's a thing, not only from the certificate, but politically. Oh, that is frustrating, huh?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, humans are the weakness in the whole process.
Huh. Damn. But I'm wishing the best for your projects, and I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing the progression of what you're trying to do. So, tell me more about yourself, the man behind all this.
What do you want to know? I'm willing to tell you whatever you'd like to know.
Like, that's a I usually let my guests kind of well, sell themselves as best they can. So, huh. So what? Here, then here's a good question. Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, please.
So we're talking about schooling. So how would you say your schooling has your schooling and your thoughts of how that process went affect what you're trying to do?
My schooling was okay. I think school generally. I'm a product of public education. My parents were middle income. My family middle income. You know, I wanted for nothing. So, but not privileged. So I didn't go to like these elite private schools, and I did very well in school. But I think it was because I found a success strategy and was able to apply that success strategy in school, because I didn't have mentorship. Like my dad didn't graduate high school, things like that. So it's not like he could tell me his success strategy to doing well in school. Yeah, but it's about figuring out how to be successful within this school system, and then applying that system, and then becoming successful, and then using that to leverage into like the next level of school. So you do really well in high school, for instance, and then you leverage that to get into the college of your choice. Then you do really well in college, and you leverage that to get into the job that you want to get into, or get into graduate school. So there's a lot of that goes on. For myself, my strategy was always, I didn't think I was the smartest person, but I knew I could be the hardest working. And then that came from a background in Muay Thai kickboxing. Muay Thai kickboxing, there's only like 7 or 8 techniques, really. You know, a couple of kicks, you know, elbows, punches. You know, it's not that interesting in terms of variety of technique. And the thing is, at a high level, everyone knows the same techniques. Everyone's doing the same thing. So where you win is sheer toughness. Can you eat more kicks than the person you're kicking? And if you can, then you win. You know, by default, you just last longer than the other person. Given that, like, things like fight IQ are the same. So, and then that kind of toughness is what led me to kind of believe in myself that I could pull all-nighters all the time. And then no matter how difficult the subject was, I could just kind of brute force my way through it. And then that was my success strategy. That's my success strategy to this day. If I need to learn something new, I could sit in a room, you know, like close the blinds, and I could learn it, you know, just through brute force. And then that's a thing I know how to do. I know how to do well. And it's just about, I think generally people figure out their own success strategies. Like, I know some people never pull all-nighters. They study for an hour. They do well in exams. They don't know how they do it. And it's better that they don't know how they do it. It's just I happen to be a person, I need to sit and read slowly and understand every word I'm reading. And that might take 20 hours out of the day. And I'm open to that, sitting for 20 hours at a table and learning something extremely dense and difficult to understand.
Wow, that is, well, like, good on you for being able to kind of solidify that, that is something that a lot of people really need to really kind of have to figure out. There's a lot of, at least the like the siblings and the cousins I have right now, they struggle for that, and it's something that a lot of people do too in this day and age, is to try to find that part of success, that fire that you really need.
Mm-hmm.
That is great that you were able to find that.
Well,
And
I think the secret, frankly, is jumping rope. So everyone starts out jumping rope. The way I generally recommend to people is you start out jumping rope, you get to 100 jumps in a row. That's kind of like the first level. Then you try to do 1,000 jumps in a row. And then after that, you could start doing tricks with the jump rope, like crossing your arms and then double jumps, things like that. But after jumping for about 5 or 6 minutes straight, something happens inside your body where deep inside of you, you want to quit. You just want to stop, because there's kind of like a soul where it's a fatigue that's so deep it reaches your soul. That's a good way of putting it, and where you just, like, every part of you just wants to quit. And learning to dull your senses to that kind of spiritual pain, I think, is the key to my kind of success strategy. Like, I could do things competitors do not want to do, because I have that ability. And then that really comes from jumping rope.
I myself have fallen victim to that, and it's only in recent times that I've been able to push myself across from that threshold. Like this podcast itself is because of me pushing myself from that worry, and so like I understand that ability to push forward in some aspects, but that, for anyone listening, that those are some really good words. It's being able to push yourself past this point of like self-doubt in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you practice Muay Thai. It's been a while, but I've spoke with a gentleman that is himself trying to become a Muay Thai professional, and that sport. What interested you in that, and had you practicing that martial art?
I was always. I think Muay Thai is particularly effective only because it's thousands of years old, and everything is highly evolved. So, for instance, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very popular in the United States, actually globally right now. But the thing is, it's a very young martial art, so it's rapidly evolving. Moves exist today that didn't exist, say, 10 years ago, and new moves are constantly being created, new ways of doing things. Not true with Muay Thai. Muay Thai, thousands of years old. People have been doing Muay Thai the same way for hundreds of years. With gloves, without gloves, it's fought the same way, same kinds of techniques, very, very similar training techniques. The boxing has changed a bit, only because Western boxing has evolved over the last 100 years. But outside of that, yeah, pretty much if you go to Thailand and you train Muay Thai, it's very similar to the way your trainer's grandfather trained Muay Thai.
That's cool. So what got? No, never mind. You already answered that.
Yeah, and also it has to be said, Muay Thai is battle tested. The Thais are kind of like in a hub area of Southeast Asia, so a lot of invaders over the years, and they had to fight a lot of wars, and they used Muay Thai as a wartime weapon to kind of defend their country. So, I think that's the test of any kind of martial art. Does it work during wartime? Like, can you depend on it to save your life and the lives of your family?
Yes, I remember. That's one of the reasons I remember, that's the first time I've ever heard of Muay Thai, was because of that during a documentary, that it was specifically a military martial art that every soldier had to learn that, and that intrigued me. And I find it fascinating when people study that art. So to meet another person who is like still not only using it to as another motive for another his own like his own success, that is an interesting way to have that confidence. So that's that is amazing.
Mm.
So so James, what else can you tell us about yourself?
I'm from New York, born and raised. I'm in New York now, working on this high school. Um, I lived in Africa for several years. I lived in Myanmar for several years. I used to run a hedge fund. I used to run a private equity fund. I could tell you about investments, my approach to investments. I could tell you about my approach to philosophy. I could talk about neuroscience. I have a master's degree in neuroscience, so I could talk about neuroscience research. I could tell you about hypnotism. I did a Fulbright in Africa using hypnosis to boost CD4 white T cell counts in HIV positive patients. And I could tell you about education and my philosophy about education because I work on these problems all day, every day. I could also tell you about refugees because I work in a refugee camp. I have friends who are refugees, and that was a development over the last 2 years. Then I could tell you about the Rohingya situation. I consider myself an expert in Myanmar only because, not because of years of training, only because there are so few experts in Myanmar. It's easy to be top 10 because like there's only a handful of Myanmar experts in the world.
Okay, wow, you are a very worldwide person.
So all that comes from is sitting in a room and learning everything you can about the subject at a very, and then all that comes from is jumping rope at the end of the day.
There you go, listeners.
Yeah.
There are some tips just to kind of push yourself a little bit forward. From everything you mentioned, what surprised me was the hypnosis thing. Can you expand on that? That is very intriguing.
Hypnosis has the known unique psychophysiology or neurobehavioral basis, so it's very difficult to say it's an actual thing. So there's still debate, and there's been ongoing debate for the last 50 or 60 years about whether hypnosis actually exists. Here's the issue. For something to exist with a human being, you have to think about it in terms of evolutionary biology. So there has to be an evolutionary basis for something to exist in a human. For instance, your nose is close to your mouth, so you could smell food before it goes into your mouth, so you know if it's rotten or not. Your eyes are in front of your face, and they're close together, so you could have stereo vision, so you can use your brain to throw something shaped like a spear at something far away with a high degree of accuracy. So a lot of these things work in conjunction with each other to leverage all the things that make you human, to make you, to create efficiencies to help you survive. So you could make you could create an understanding for why things exist because of it. Same thing is true with hypnosis. So humans are good at a few things that every other animal isn't good at. And one of those things is that a human can take a stone the size of a baseball and throw it very, very fast and very, very hard at something small, the size of a strike zone, for instance. And very few animals can do that. Monkeys can throw things. They can't throw things that hard or that accurately. Elephants can throw things. They can't throw things that hard, that accurately. Now, if you've ever faced down a large animal, like a cow, for instance, like a longhorn cow, who could charge at you and stab you with one of its horns, and you picked up a stone and thrown it at that cow to make it go away, one stone usually doesn't work, especially if you miss. So you need a way of recruiting your little group of people, your little tribe of people, to either follow you, fight or flee, or follow you and throw stones, or run away. Now, if everyone has their own mind and can think independently, they would all make an independent decision to fight or flee. You can't have that, especially if you're a small group fending off, say, one or two large animals attacking the group. You have to decide as a unit whether you will all fight, you'll all pick up stones, and you'll all throw them, or you will all run. And a way of making that happen is hypnosis. And if you think about it through that frame, you can define everything about hypnosis very well. I mean, you need an authority figure and to give suggestions, and then there's a lending of will, meaning when you're hypnotized, you lend your will to the other person. You don't give it up completely, but you just kind of say, all right, whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it 100%. And then you're able to recruit resources to whatever that authoritarian figure wants at that moment. You're aware of it. For the most part, you're aware of it. And then it's in the brain. When you look at MRI scans of people who are being hypnotized, it's as if it is happening. So there was a study done maybe 15 years ago where subjects were hypnotized, and then this was an fMRI study, so they were scanned while they were hypnotized, and they were asked to imagine what it was like to be abducted by aliens, meaning these were people who believed that they were abducted by aliens. And I may be slightly mistaken about some of the details, but this is a rough idea. So when they remembered being abducted by aliens under hypnosis, it activated the same centers of the brain as when things actually happen. Like when you actually remember trauma, it activates the same centers of the brain, which are different from the areas of the brain which are activated when you are just imagining things, because they were also asked to imagine things. And then you compare that data to a control group where they're just activating areas of the brain related to imagination. And then, so it's as if it happens for real. And that's pretty indicative of someone who's been hypnotized. They feel as if it's happening for real. And that all makes sense in that evolutionary biological basis.
That's a very well put out statement.
That's also a very long-winded way of answering. But no, I don't know how interesting that is to you.
No, it was like I was following along every part because the way you spelled it out, it works, because the way you explained the kind of the group portion where it is true that to be able to kind of put that much of a suggestion in a group, to have that subtle way to suggest to the group to agree to this, that's a good way to put that. That's something that we've evolved into doing, that we follow the quote alpha, and then to be able to then say it in the way where it's in our brains that you explained, that it's something that's can be vividly remembered, like how, like, even though it was long-winded, I was very like it's hard to say it back because you put it so perfectly well. It's like I get it. Like, for anyone listening, me rambling kind of ruined it, but like honestly,
not at all.
you put it just right. It's a great way to explain how, like, it is that it is a tough subject to talk about, because, like you said, it's something that still is being studied, and it's hard to solidify. But it's used subtly, and it has been slightly proven that it's possible. And you said that you used this method down in Africa. Like, what were you trying to do?
Immunomodulation. So altering the immune system, specifically with respect to a type of T cell, which is a type of immune cell called CD4, which is important for AIDS patients.
Okay.
So seeing if we could boost the number of CD4 T cells in HIV-positive patients. And I was in Uganda, and Uganda is a landlocked country, so They have chronic problems getting enough highly active antiretrovirals to AIDS patients, HIV patients in the country, because it's a country of roughly 30 million people. About 10% of the population has HIV or AIDS, and it's landlocked. So if you want to deliver a cocktail of drugs to each of those people, roughly 3 million people, you're going to need, at the minimum, 3 million pills going in and out of Uganda each day. And then it has to go through either Mombasa or through Kenya. Sorry, it either goes through Kenya or Tanzania, and so it can't go to Uganda directly. So that was a big problem, looking for solutions that didn't rely on pharmacological intervention. So there was some research from the 90s, back during the Wild West days of HIV, when people weren't sure about what to do about it, where a group of people, it was called behavioral stress management, where the thinking was that if we put together this program to manage stress, naturally people who have been diagnosed with HIV are under a lot of stress, and if you were able to manage that stress, you kind of you slow down the progression of HIV to AIDS, because the stress doesn't impact the immune system so much. So that was the basis for it. And this behavioral stress management program was comprised of hypnosis and meditation rolled into one. So you would do all these things, and then at the end of it, your stress levels would be lowered. So what I did, because since the 90s, no one had done any research into that, because highly active antiretrovirals had gotten so good that people now live an entire lifetime having HIV or AIDS, just because the drugs are so good now. But looking at whether we could tease these things apart, meaning having a control condition where no one gets, they listen to music basically, and then you have a hypnosis condition, and then you have a meditation condition, and then seeing which one would be more effective at modulating this particular type of white T cell, if it had an effect at all. And the pilot data looked really good. It just so happened, strangely, if I could go off on a tangent, that most of the patients were dying not because of HIV, but because of comorbidity with something, getting malaria at the same time that you had HIV, and the malaria would depress your immune system to the point where HIV would progress to AIDS, and then it's pretty downhill from there. So then I worked on malaria for a time now. But that was the whole journey, like one thing points to another, and it's I think that's an important thing to know about me. I'm generally unsatisfied with quick PR wins. I understand optics. I understand what it takes to look really good in media, and like it would make a really great social media viral video if you could say, like, look, this guy's using hypnosis to help HIV patients. That sounds great. But at the end of the day, you have to, for you to really win, like definitively win, it can't end there, and then I consider that a fake win, because you got the video, you got the accolades, but you didn't win anything. You didn't beat anything, in real terms. Really, you had to solve for malaria, because malaria is killing more AIDS patients than AIDS in Uganda, and then so it would not be a complete solution.
Wow, that was a whirlwind. It felt, just thinking about it, what you were trying to do, like the idea of that the concept sounds really interesting. That's why I asked to be able to use hypnosis and meditation to be able to help the patient, but then seeing that the outcome was like faltered because of a second issue that could be a little frustrating. But I can understand the also the idea of the social that social aspect, the ability to say like, yes, you can. We're trying to cure something with X, but
Mhm.
that that fake win that so many people are just are enthralled with these days, like your 15, well, not even 15 minutes of fame anymore. It's like 5 seconds of fame here and there now. It's for depending on the person, like you said, it can be a joy to have those 5 seconds, but it's short lived when you're trying to strive for something more.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Mm. Yeah, social media today makes it easy for the dumbest people in society to have the same kind of voice and platform as the smartest people in society. And then I think that might be a problem going forward for a lot of people.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Tell me. Then let me ask you. Then you kind of said a little bit. As can you elaborate a little bit more of your thoughts on some of the social medias you feel like have some good positives and some negatives, and also in the way you use it as well too for not only your old project, your new project.
I think social media is really interesting. I think it's 2019. It's how we use the internet is through social media. So and it's a fact of life. People like using it. For Myanmar specifically, Myanmar was under military control for 49 years and opened up to the rest of the world practically, realistically, 2011, but practically, like in real terms, in 2013. So they skipped over the whole email, internet, search engine. They skipped all of that and went directly to Facebook. So Facebook is the center of everything in Myanmar, and so it's where you get all your entertainment, all your video feed, and it's what's replacing TV in Myanmar. So it's a way of life, especially when you work with Myanmar-based issues and delivering content over Facebook and figuring out how Facebook works, Facebook targeting, using Facebook data to kind of guide your decisions. Those are all really important things. And then politically, how politically important Facebook is, because you're able to do like this hyper-specific targeting to kind of alter messages based on these well, let's say minuscule differences between targeted audiences to be more effective. And you could use this big data approach where you can kind of A/B test against these micro audiences whether one piece of messaging is more effective than the other. And then you could be highly predictive about your messaging and what kind of results it would produce, and which leads me to believe that free and fair elections in around the world probably will not exist going forward, and it probably ended with the last U.S. election in terms of real terms, like whether an election could be swayed or not, mostly because regulation cannot keep up with technological change. So, for instance, as an example, there's no regulation saying you can't run videos to a specific audience, and those videos can't have subliminal messages in it, for instance. Now, subliminal message research, the subliminal priming, that's the term you would use if you wanted to Google search it, shows that it doesn't work well when you repeat it with the same audience. Meaning, I could subliminally prime you with a message of red, the color red, and then I could put two pens in front of you, a blue pen and a red pen, and more often than not, you would choose the red pen after the subliminal priming process, which might be, say, watching a video of kittens playing on a piano, right?
Okay.
The thing is, it won't work every time. So you cannot expect this subliminal priming that happens while these people are watching this kitten video to happen every time. They won't pick red all the time. They'll pick it most of the time, but not all the time. And so it's not reliable when you talk about it on an individual basis. But across a broad audience, you could sway that audience. You could sway 20 or 30% of that audience through subliminal priming. And then that might be one portion of a kind of neutral audience. They're not sure which way to vote. But if you can sway them through micro-targeting, if you could break up this middle audience, for instance, into 100 targeted audiences, and then deliver highly specific content to those different audiences with subliminal messaging, presumably you could sway an entire election. And no one's thinking about things like that, firstly. Secondly, there's no regulation against that, even for straight up advertising. Like, no one's saying you can't use subliminal messages in video ads right now. Or like, for instance, YouTube pre-roll, which is based on your Google search. Like, no one's saying you can't do that. And by the time someone will say, oh yeah, you're not allowed to use subliminal messages, you'll set those messages up a different way, or you would have moved on to the next technology. So you can outrun regulation that way. That's what I think about social media. It's incredibly dangerous because the smartest minds at work aren't thinking about these kinds of issues.
Wow. I was thinking about that, but now I gotta look into that. That might help me out. But that is true. It's not subliminal messaging hasn't been really talked about. I remember this topic back in the day was something that was on a lot of people's minds, but it's really diverged a lot. It's not even spoken. Like, this is actually the first I've heard anyone really talk about it. Like, it's, and the idea of doing it, it makes me kind of think of a way to do it myself.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are aware of how much research has been done. There's only a handful of people who really focus on using it, and a lot of their research is being contested right now just because there's this big scandal in psychology. The branch of psychology that really studies subliminal priming is social psychology. So, and then they're getting this inability to replicate research kind of scandal where, like, people are trying to reproduce results and they can't. So that's a big deal in research right now. So when people are wondering whether any of this is true or not, and those will be objections people fight over on the internet in places like Reddit, while other people actually just use it and they just look at their data analytics. Like, Facebook gives you ad analytics at the end, and you can measure results based on that, and then you could be quiet about it while everyone debates whether it's actually a thing or not.
Okay. I'm going to start paying attention a little bit more and try to learn from that. Okay. So from everything I've been listening from you, and from all the work you've been doing over the last couple years, you've done a lot of charitable work. So what got you interested in that? What was some of the first few things that got you into working in, charity-like things?
I don't believe in charitable work.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot. It sounds like I'm doing nonprofit work, and there's definitely no money in delivering free basic education to people. I think about it in terms of what's right and what's wrong and the worth of a human life. I think about it in those terms, not necessarily in maximizing, say, maximizing income, which is how a lot of people think about what they do from day to day. Like, how do I make the most money given my skill set? I don't think about things in terms of that at all. More of there's this movement, effective altruism. I think that's the name of the movement, something like that, where mathematically you can show that if you maximize your income, you're able to donate a lot of money, and donating that money produces enough of a change in the world to justify you focusing on maximizing income. So you should, instead of being a doctor working in a refugee camp, you should be a doctor working in New York City, maybe doing breast implants, making as much money as possible, so you could donate that money, and then that money will have a huge impact, more impact than you could have working in a refugee camp halfway around the world as a doctor. So there's that camp. There's a tiny kind of population of people that totally rejects that. And I'm part of that population. And the reason we reject that thinking is because I believe current institutions and systems can be improved upon. And they can be improved in such a way that no one's really thinking about those kinds of improvements. So, for instance, if all you did was support existing institutions, there would be no Facebook or Google. There would be nothing disruptive, because all you're doing, 100% of your efforts go into supporting what is. And my problem philosophically with charities is that I think about it like this. Say you and I were roommates and we lived in an apartment together. And today you tell me, look, James, there's a leak in our bathroom. So let's call a plumber. And I agree. Let's call a plumber. Let's find the best plumber possible to come and fix this leak. Plumber comes, pay him $300, fixes the leak. He says, it's all set. We're like, great. We pay him. He leaves. Later tonight, starts leaking again. So we look at each other and we're like, all right, let's call this plumber again. Comes back, pay him another $300, fixes the leak, leaves. And then early next morning, it starts leaking again, just this time from a different place. So we call him again, pay him another $300, fixes that leak. Later on in the day tomorrow, starts leaking again, this time from a different place. 30 years down the road, we're still living together because we're spending so much on this plumber who comes multiple times a day fixing these leaks. The apartment is waist high in water. Leaks have never gone away, even though we've kept putting in money to fix these things. We've put in so much money, we could have replaced the entire plumbing system in the entire building. Yet, leaks still spring up, and the problems are worse than they ever have been. And for decades, generations even. And I believe that is the state of charity in the world. Like, we're throwing so much money at these problems, but if you look at their marketing materials, all they say is that these problems are getting worse, that they're not being solved. And I believe it is the duty, a moral obligation of every charity to run itself out of business. So, for instance, if you're a charity that's, working against Alzheimer's, to find a cure for Alzheimer's, you should be dedicating every last cent, every cell in your body to finding a cure for Alzheimer's, and then closing your doors forever. But that's not how charities work. Charities optimize for specifically government money, so they skip a lot of private or institutional money, just because government grants are in the tens, hundreds of millions, where private institutional money might be 100,000. And writing a grant takes as much time for $100,000 as it does for, say, 10 million. So naturally, you want to optimize and go after the $10 million grants. And then to win those grants, you need certain types of optics, meaning you need certain types of metrics that you need to collect, and you need to do certain types of projects. And those projects are not necessarily directly aligned with solving the problem at hand. These are just projects that look really good. They're PR wins. And then these problems never go away. It's just this constant cycle of people throwing money at things. And then that is kind of that was a very involved way of saying, no, I'm very interested in solving very specific problems, and I'm interested in thinking in different ways about it, just because solutions, I have a lot on the. It's very high stakes for me. I'm not some dilettante coming and saying, oh, maybe I could work on this because it sounds really cool. I support these kids in Myanmar, and I truly support them. I pay for their education, I pay for some of their clothes, I buy them food. I watch them grow up. I make sure they have opportunities. If education fails for me, it fails for these kids. And that really bothers me. And then I need to really look at like serious solutions because, like I don't want to have to work on this forever. I can't watch these kids grow up and not have options. You understand? Because if they grow up, if enough years pass, little girls turn into young women get trafficked because they don't have options. And I got to deal with that every day. So I need to solve problems. It's very serious for me.
Okay, so like, oh wow, that statement, like like really put a lot of things in perspective, and it's it's kind of hard to say because like it knocks some wind into me because the way you spelled it out is a lot of people have to put in a lot of personal effort into that, and actually I find I have found a little bit more respect for you because you put so much work into it, and not a lot of people have that mentality. It's a very, very lost thing in this day and age. It's very disappointing when I think about it. That you mentioned earlier that the ability to push yourself to a point and beyond that, and like you yourself are working on a project not just to do this continuously, but to do your best to succeed on it, and to that is something I wish so many people did. And I actually really like enjoyed your explanation of the ways some charities work. It's known that in the past decade or so, charities have not been forthcoming a lot, and that is true. But like the overall thing, like spoke of, that really struck a chord with me, and I feel that's something a lot of people should really think about when working on any real project they truly feel invested in. That that honestly, that was a strong message.
I don't think of it that way. I just think of it in terms of right and wrong. Like you're gonna half-ass some work that someone's future depends on, and you got to think about whether you could live with yourself or not on that. And then frankly, a lot of people just they don't care, and that's fine. That's people. That's just how people are.
Yeah.
It's just like I just find that I cannot accept things that way. And it's worth if you were to do like an economic analysis of the situation. I think it's worth human life, the work I do, and that's why I invest my life into it, because I think it's worth my life. If I didn't think it was worth it, I probably wouldn't be as interested in it.
Okay, and I commend you for that. That's something I wish more people did with their time, instead of literally being on social media yelling at each other for nonsense.
People love social media. It activates something inside of people that is highly addictive, and people love it. People love complaining about things. People love displaying their politics, showing off different things about their lives. These are things that people love doing generally. So I don't know if you can fault people for that. People love telling you about how good their food is, whatever they had for lunch. So they love taking these really careful photos of it and then making sure you know about it, but they love that. And it's I think it's a part of who we are as people, this whole social status thing, letting kind of signaling that you're of very high social status and that you are to be respected. But frankly, that's people. That's how we are as our nature.
Okay. So So we're getting towards the end of the show, and at this point, I asked my guests about a tale of the weirdest, strangest, most convoluted thing that you've ever encountered, you have ever seen, or you've ever done.
Sure. Well, I probably have a lot. I don't know what you want to talk about specifically.
Whatever tale you wish to share with us in the audience.
Sure. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was living in Austin, running a lotto arbitrage with the Texas State Lotto. This was when I was running a hedge fund, and we decided to drive to Las Vegas one day, and that's a long drive. And then we decided to take this route through New Mexico, and New Mexico's all desert, right? And it was in the middle of the night, maybe 3 a.m. And we're driving, and then we see this light in front of us, headlight, a single headlight. Think it's a motorcycle. We see it cross over. It's a 2-lane highway. One lane goes in a different direction, and it cross over into our lane and then starts speeding up directly at us. And so I slow down and I pull over, and then maybe about a half mile before it reaches us, it disappears. And we were kind of weirded out about it, especially in part of New Mexico, Area 51, near Roswell. It's super weird. And I understand, this refraction happens with car headlights on a highway, and these lights appear, and people mistake them as UFOs and stuff like that. That was just really weird. There was no other cars on the highway. It was just us, middle of the night. Super duper strange. To this day, we have no idea.
That is weird. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That is not something that happens every day, or possibly, but not a lot of people talk about that. Wow.
Sure.
That is something odd. Thank you for sharing that. So, we're getting towards the last part. This is the game show portion of the podcast. So, the game you chose is Job Hunt. Job Hunt is one of the newest games added to the podcast, in which you'll be applying for 2 different jobs. You were informed of the first job. You are trying to apply to be a therapist. You were given some interesting requirements for the job, plus you can add some of the ones you currently have as well to try to acquire this job.
Sure.
So I'm going to interview you to try to be a therapist. So
okay.
Why should you join us and be one of our therapists?
I could outwork just about anyone you know. I have an incredibly high attention to detail, and I succeeded. I have a track record of success, and I see myself succeeding in your environment and bringing a lot of value to your business.
Okay.
I think if I could go off on a tangent, I believe the best answer to every job interview is simply to say this. At some point, an interviewer is going to ask you, why would I choose you over all these other applicants? Or, why did you come here today? And I think the right answer just about every time is to say, I'm a killer. Now, what I mean by that is that not that I'll take a knife and murder you. I don't mean that at all. What I mean by that is, if you and I were to compete on something, I would not sleep, I would not eat, I would not shit until I saw you lose. And what I mean by that is, I will work so hard to make it look so easy for me that you feel so much despair that you want to kill yourself. That's what it's like to compete against me, and that is what I will bring to your organization. Do you want that or not? And if they say no, they're a bunch of losers and you should leave. But if people who are highly competitive, and business is super highly competitive, if they understand that, they'll hire you on the spot.
Okay.
And I think I always, generally in the back, I haven't applied to a job in a very long time. Because running my own organization for a while, but I always look for that. When I hire people, I'm like, are you competitive in that way? Can I leave you alone in a room and you can make magic happen? I'm always looking for people like that.
Actually, that tangent off the game for a little bit. Actually, we like everyone listening, that's actually that's a really great statement, because at my current work we've got some new hires, and that aspect, the ability to really push yourself to work, that work ethic, is something that lacks a lot in our youth, because of we've gotten 3 trainees, and it's just sad to watch them work. They have no drive. They have no, and I know it's not the job they're trying to do, but it's a job. Mm-hmm. I was told, my father told me when I got the job he referred me to. He told me, you were hired to do a job, not to be babysat. Mm-hmm. I told and those words still ring true. Like, I was hired to do a job. I'm not there to be watched over. I'm like that. I told those exact words to every person that I've ever had to train, and for the most part, it's worked. And sadly, these 3 individuals, some show some promise, but I know that not the job they want, but it's the job they chose to do, and at least they can do their best at the job they were given. That's honestly, that's all I want from them. I want them to do their best at the job. But there is no that drive, that killer drive to do your best. I think that's something a lot of people should really try to do when trying to get the job.
I'm not sure if I totally agree with you. I think you need to, well, from my perspective, I like to separate people into what are called cannons and ammunition. So there are some people, ammunition is what you shoot. You have to aim, you have to shoot, and then that ammunition does the job of destroying the thing you've targeted. A cannon, on the other hand, you point it in the general direction, you fire it off, and it destroys everything in front of you, right?
Okay.
So I think you have to separate people into those 2 categories, meaning there are some people you have to give them a lot of direction for a specific target, teach them exactly how to get to that target, and let them do that on repeat, and then figure out how many times they can repeat that in an hour, and then that is your output metric for that one individual. Other people, you could just point them in a general direction. We need to throw this event at this new venue for 50 people, black tie. We need to find sponsors. I don't know how you're going to do it. You point them in that direction, they will figure it out. You don't know how they're going to figure out. You don't know what they're going to do. You just give them freedom to operate, and they will figure it out. And I think if you separate those 2 types of people, the cannons will figure out how to use the ammo to get what you want. And then I think I feel that's a superior strategy than just trying to train everyone to be the same. Because frankly, a lot of people are in a different headspace. They want different things. Some people are just there to, clock in, clock out, and get paid. They don't really care about your business. They just want to get paid, buy some weed, smoke up. But that's their life, and they can make that choice, and then that might be all they want to do. That's their choice. They're allowed to make that choice. And it's just giving people who want to be more advanced in your company or in your organization those opportunities so they don't get frustrated. I think that's a leader's job.
Okay. I'm gonna listen back to that. I like that analogy. That's
I don't know, it's mine. Someone at some popular company, it might be WordPress or another company like that, something that everyone uses. They described it that way, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. And then I started describing it that way.
If it works, it works, and I like the way you said it. I'm gonna start thinking about it like that. Okay, so transitioning back to the game. So, okay, some of your other qualities that I forgot to mention that you have to try to acquire this job is, so you have 5 additional qualities, and you're going to have to work their way into the job. So you have no sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to talk to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to make excuses.
Mm-hmm.
You are a mind reader, and you have a resting bitch. Work those qualities into trying to apply to be a therapist.
Sure, definitely.
Okay. So,
are you going to ask me more questions, or you want me to talk?
Tell me why these qualities, these 5 qualities, are essential for being a therapist at my company.
Oh, okay. So you want me to list the quality and then explain why these are assets?
Yes, that to the best. Improv.
No problem. I have no sense of smell. I think that's really important for a therapist, just because I could get close and not be bothered by any type of person that walks through the door. It doesn't matter about their personal hygiene. I could treat them all the same. I think mind reading is particularly important because I can stay ahead of things. I could determine when people are being less than forthcoming, which is important to guide the conversation where it needs to go. I make a lot of excuses. I think that could be an asset to your organization, only because there will always be an answer to a question, and that's really important when patients want to know what's going on or have unreasonable demands. Like you want to be believable to them, and it goes very far to allaying fears and calming down tense situations. So in that particular type of context, I could perform very well, and I'm pretty sure it's hard for you to find people who could perform just as well in that kind of situation as me. I can talk to dead people. I think that's incredibly important in a therapeutic setting, just because a lot of trauma arises from people who are gone. If you think about Fritz Perls, whose work was seminal to modern therapy, it used to be said about him that he would put a patient in the hot seat, and it would be like he would unzip you from the top of your head down to the tip of your toes, and your tortured soul would fall out in between you two, where just because he was able to get you to a point where you could be that raw and honest about yourself. And I think having that ability to reach beyond and really give someone the ability to converse with someone who's no longer here, I think can kind of help us get to those breakthroughs, which is really important to therapy in general. And I have a bitch face, which is a poker face generally. It's important that I not lead conversations in the therapeutic setting by the expressions I make. So long as you know that this is the one expression I make, it's not changing how patients feel or their answers to my questions, or it doesn't alter the stories they're trying to tell at all, whether or not they're looking at my face.
Oh, all right. I actually enjoyed the way you work those around. So, I see you're trying to apply for our other job. These qualities themselves, all at random, work surprisingly well for a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do these qualities apply when you're trying to apply for our other position as a competitive eater?
Competitive feeder or eater?
Eater.
Competitive eater. Well, competitive eating involves a high degree of analysis and kind of figuring out how to break down a meal so it could be eaten as quickly as possible. Mind reading is particularly important to that, because you want to know whether your strategy for breaking down food to swallow it as soon as possible is better than the people sitting around you. And as long as you have an edge, you might squeeze in one more pancake or one more hot dog, for instance, which will separate you from second best, which will drastically change or substantially change the amount of earnings at the end of the year from competitive eating. It's important that you not have a sense of smell, just because you've eaten things all your life. You know what smells good to you. If you eat 300 of something, maybe you get sick of the way that thing tastes or the way that thing smells. Smell is directly tied to taste. So, because I'm numb to that won't ever bother me, which is an asset to any competitive eater. I make a lot of excuses. I think that's particularly important because competitive eaters, especially champions, are winners, and then they tend to win. They tend to go on television. You want things for them to say, especially you want them to sound good when they do come in second, because if you have a string of first place wins and then you come in second place in a competition, you still want to sound really good to maintain your sponsorships with different advertisers, and I could do that. I could speak really well even when I lose. I talk to dead people. I think that's particularly important. I think the mental aspect of competitive eating is incredibly important, especially getting into the heads of the different people around you. If you're able to talk to dead relatives or the people around you, you get into their head. You put them in an emotional place where they can't concentrate on performing their best. I think that gives me a particular edge over everyone I compete with. And I have a resting bitch face. You won't know when I'm hurt, when I can't eat anymore. You won't know whether I'm having an off day. All you'll know is me by my reputation, and that's enough. As long as you get in their head and you play head games, that's enough to make you allow you to win sometimes. Because a lot of times you're not in a setting where you're going to try for a world's record. You're just trying to beat who you perceive to be the best person at the table or in the competition. And as long as your expression doesn't change at any time, it can be very intimidating, especially if we put out enough good PR based on my ability to use excuses very well. And I could think that could give us a sizable advantage over everyone else who's in the field.
All right. I really enjoyed how you were able to string along those. That was really the one I was hoping to throw you off, but you did a wonderful job.
I actually happen to know a lot about competitive eating, and I know a lot about therapy. So
really? Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Random. So as far as the job, the qualities you provide, I feel you'll be a perfect fit as a therapist. Your qualities feel a little bit more tamed for that. Your ability for competitive eating sounds great, but I feel you'll fit best as a therapist. So we would welcome you as our therapist. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. That was fun. I really enjoyed how you were able to put all that together. That's kind of tricky for some people.
Yeah.
So this is the time where I let my guests kind of tell the people where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and everything along that nature.
Generally through the website, exulcoin.com, EXSUL, that's Latin for exiled. Coin, because we do issue our own cryptocurrency, which we use not as a currency per se, but to record academic achievements. So instead of getting an A letter grade on a report card, you get an A equivalent coin that's written on a blockchain, which records or B if you got a B in the course. So exulcoin.com, and you could message me through there. You can contact me through there. You can read about my work there.
All right. So thank you again, James. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join me and having a discussion. And it was really enlightening to hear some of the things from a different perspective. And it's one of the few things that I really like about this show is me being able to talk to so many different people and learn so many different things.
Super cool. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
No, I appreciate it. So for anyone listening, I'll have all those links down below. And once again, thanks again for joining. Until next time, see ya.
Hey everybody, my name is Grant, and I host a podcast called It's Trivial. Now, It's Trivial is a game show in which I pit comedians, musicians, podcasters, and other interesting people against one another, usually in front of a live audience for the sake of public ridicule. Hope you'll check it out. There's something there for everybody. There's stuff for people who like movies, music, history, geography, comic books, and even more. Be sure to give me a follow here on social media on Instagram and Twitter at It's Trivial Show, and check out the entire first season of It's Trivial now in your favorite podcast app. Thanks.